You're looking at a photograph from October 1893, taken at St. Bartholomew's Asylum in Millbrook, Pennsylvania. In the frame sits a young woman named Clara Whitmore, her hands folded peacefully in her lap. What disturbs modern viewers is not her pale complexion or hollow stare, but something the camera captured that no human ear detected. When the photograph was developed 3 days later, Asylum director Dr. Cornelius Ashford noticed something impossible in the silver nitrate grain. The image showed Clara's lips frozen mid-word, yet two distinct shadows fell from her mouth onto her white hospital gown. Medical experts of the era had no explanation for how a single person could cast dual vocal shadows. What they would discover in the coming weeks would challenge everything they believed about the human voice. On October 12, 1893, Clara Whitmore spoke her first recorded words at St. Bartholomew's. Witnesses swore she spoke them in two different voices simultaneously. The attending physician wrote in his notes that evening, "Patient exhibits bilateral vocal manifestation of unknown origin." No one suspected that Clara herself had no memory of speaking at all. The mystery deepened when staff realized the second voice belonged to someone who had died in that same room. 3 months earlier, in July 1893, patient Margaret Sinclair had passed away in bed 17. Margaret's final words, recorded by night nurse Helen Morrison, were, "Tell them I'm still here." These were the exact words Clara spoke in the second voice on October 12th. Dr. Ashford ordered the photograph to document Clara's condition for medical review. The camera captured what human ears struggled to separate, evidence of two distinct vocal sources. In the weeks that followed, more patients in the East Wing began speaking in voices not their own. Each voice belonged to someone who had died within those walls. The asylum's death records showed a disturbing pattern dating back to its founding in 1847. Every patient who had died in the East Wing had spoken their final words aloud. Those same final words would later emerge from the lips of living patients. Dr. Ashford began keeping detailed records of what he termed posthumous vocal inheritance. His leather-bound journal, discovered in 1967, contained over 200 documented cases. The journal's final entry, dated December 23, 1893, consisted of a single line, written in Dr. Ashford's careful script. "I fear I become both observer and observed." The next morning, staff found Dr. Ashford in his office, speaking quietly to an empty chair. When questioned, he insisted he was conversing with his predecessor, Dr. William Hartwell. Hartwell had died in that same office chair in 1889. His final words, according to asylum records, were, "The voices never truly leave." These were the words staff heard Dr. Ashford repeat over and over again. Clara Whitmore's photograph remains in the Millbrook Historical Society's archives today. Visitors often comment on an unsettling detail that emerges upon closer examination. In the silver grain of that old photograph, you can almost hear the whispers. The autumn of 1893 marked a pivotal moment in American psychiatric medicine and photographic documentation. Edison's new kinetoscope had just debuted at the Chicago World's Fair, while asylums across Pennsylvania embraced camera technology for patient records. The Pennsylvania Railroad had recently connected Millbrook to Philadelphia, bringing modern medical equipment to rural institutions. St. Bartholomew's Asylum operated under the moral treatment philosophy, emphasizing humane care and detailed observation of patient behavior. Dr. Cornelius Ashford had trained at Jefferson Medical College before accepting his position at St. Bartholomew's in 1891. His predecessor, Dr. William Hartwell, had established the asylum's reputation for meticulous record-keeping and scientific methodology. The asylum's patient ledger, discovered during renovations in 1967, contained Hartwell's detailed notes on unusual vocal presentations dating to 1847. Hartwell had documented 17 cases of patients speaking in voices that matched deceased individuals' recorded final statements. His notes referenced phonographic memory retention within institutional spaces, a theory that challenged contemporary understanding of sound and death. The ledger included sketches of vocal wave patterns and detailed timestamps for each incident. Hartwell's final entry, dated November 3, 1889, described his own experience hearing residual vocal echoes in the East Wing corridor. He wrote, "The architecture itself appears to retain sonic impressions of human speech, particularly final utterances." Parish records from Millbrook's St. Mary's Church showed that 17 asylum patients had received last rites in the East Wing between 1847 and 1893. Each patient's final words were carefully recorded by attending clergy, creating an inadvertent catalog of posthumous vocal evidence. Reverend Thomas McKenna's burial register noted that East Wing patients often spoke with unusual clarity in their final moments. McKenna documented exact quotations, believing them to be messages for surviving family members. The Pennsylvania Medical Society's quarterly journal from 1889 contained Dr. Hartwell's controversial paper, Acoustic Residue in Institutional Settings. The paper theorized that human voices could imprint upon limestone and plaster under specific emotional conditions. Hartwell's research focused on the relationship between mortality, vocal stress, and architectural acoustics. His measurements showed that the East Wing's walls contained higher limestone content than other sections of the asylum. Limestone, according to Hartwell's calculations, possessed unique properties for retaining sound vibrations over extended periods. The paper was rejected by the Medical Society's review board as speculation lacking empirical foundation. Dr. Ashford inherited Hartwell's research notes and continued documenting vocal anomalies with photographic evidence. His correspondence with the Philadelphia College of Physicians revealed growing concern about inherited vocal patterns among patients. A sealed police memorandum from Millbrook Sheriff, dated January 1894, described disturbing reports of conversations with deceased individuals. The memorandum noted that asylum staff had requested police investigation into possible fraud or criminal deception. However, police interviews with witnesses confirmed that multiple voices emerged from single individuals simultaneously. Sheriff James Crawford wrote, "No earthly explanation accounts for what we observed in that East Wing." The asylum's board of directors ordered a formal review of all patient cases involving vocal irregularities. Their sealed report, filed with the Pennsylvania State Board of Health, recommended immediate closure of the East Wing. The report stated, "Patient safety cannot be guaranteed in a facility where deceased individuals appear to communicate through living subjects." St. Bartholomew's East Wing was sealed on February 14, 1894. The official explanation cited structural concerns and ventilation issues requiring extensive renovation. No renovation ever occurred, and the East Wing remained sealed until the asylum's closure in 1923. Dr. Ashford's final photograph, taken on February 13, 1894, showed him standing alone in the empty East Wing corridor. In that image, witnesses later claimed, you could see two distinct shadows behind the doctor, though no one else was present. October 12, 1893, began as an unremarkable Tuesday morning at St. Bartholomew's Asylum, with temperatures hovering at 42 degrees. At precisely 9:17 a.m., Clara Whitmore spoke her first words since admission 3 weeks earlier for what medical records termed selective mutism. Night nurse Helen Morrison was adjusting Clara's bedding when the patient turned toward the window and spoke clearly. Morrison later testified that Clara's lips moved normally, but two distinct voices emerged. One young and melodious, another aged and raspy. The younger voice said, "The morning light feels warm on my face." Simultaneously, the older voice declared, "Tell them I'm still here." Morrison dropped the fresh linens and summoned Dr. Ashford immediately, noting the exact time in her pocket watch. Dr. Ashford arrived within 4 minutes, carrying his new Kodak No. 2 camera and a notebook for documentation. Clara continued speaking in both voices, apparently unaware that any sound was emerging from her throat. When questioned directly, Clara showed no recognition of having spoken and appeared confused by the attention. Dr. Ashford positioned his camera 12 feet from Clara's bed and prepared a photographic plate for exposure. The morning sunlight streaming through the east wing window provided adequate illumination for a 15-second exposure. As the shutter opened, Clara spoke again. "I can see the gardens from here," overlapped with "Tell them I'm still here." Dr. Ashford noted that both voices maintained distinct tonal qualities, pitch ranges, and speech patterns throughout the observation period. The younger voice corresponded to Clara's age and regional accent from her admission records. The older voice exhibited characteristics matching Margaret Sinclair's documented speech patterns from nursing notes prior to her death. Morrison retrieved Margaret's medical file and confirmed that "Tell them I'm still here" were Margaret's exact final words on July 15, 1893. Margaret had died in bed 17 at 3:33 a.m., with Morrison recording the time and final statement in the official death log. Clara now occupied that same bed 17, having been transferred there due to overcrowding in the women's ward. Dr. Ashford's photographic plate, developed that evening in the asylum's makeshift darkroom, revealed an impossible detail. Two separate shadow patterns appeared beneath Clara's chin, suggesting dual vocal projections from a single source. Professional photographer James Whitman, summoned from Philadelphia, examined the developed image with magnifying equipment. Whitman confirmed that the photographic chemistry showed no signs of manipulation or double exposure. His written assessment stated, "The image presents genuine dual shadowing consistent with simultaneous vocal projection from one individual. Weather conditions remained stable throughout the morning, eliminating atmospheric interference as a potential explanation." Dr. Ashford's barometer readings showed consistent pressure at 30.12 inches of mercury with no wind disturbance. The asylum's limestone walls, constructed in 1847, had experienced no recent structural changes that might affect acoustic properties. Engineering surveys from 1892 confirmed that bed 17's position created no unusual sound reflection or amplification effects. Clara's medical examination revealed normal throat, larynx, and vocal cord structure with no abnormalities or damage. Dr. Ashford enlisted Dr. Samuel Morrison from Jefferson Medical College to conduct a secondary examination using laryngoscopy. Morrison's report documented, "Patient exhibits anatomically normal vocal apparatus incapable of producing simultaneous, distinct vocalizations." Nevertheless, throughout the examination, Clara continued speaking in both voices without apparent awareness or physical strain. The phenomenon persisted for 7 consecutive days, with Dr. Ashford documenting each occurrence in his leather-bound journal. Staff members from all shifts confirmed witnessing the dual vocal manifestation during routine patient care activities. Reverend McKenna, summoned to provide spiritual counsel, observed Clara speaking in Margaret Sinclair's voice during evening prayers. McKenna wrote in his parish record, "The deceased woman's voice emerged with such clarity that I felt compelled to respond as if she were present." On October 19th, at 11:45 p.m., Clara spoke her final words in Margaret's voice. In the silence that followed, the east wing felt heavier, as if something had finally departed. Dr. Ashford's telegram to the Pennsylvania Medical Society, sent October 20th, 1893, requested immediate consultation regarding unprecedented vocal phenomena. The Society dispatched Professor Edmund Hartley from Philadelphia College of Medicine, arriving by rail on October 23rd with specialized acoustic equipment. Hartley brought a new Edison phonograph cylinder recorder and calibrated tuning forks to measure vocal frequency patterns with scientific precision. His preliminary examination of Clara Whitmore confirmed Dr. Ashford's documentation of simultaneous distinct vocal emissions from a single patient. Hartley's phonograph recordings, preserved in wax cylinders labeled St. Bartholomew's Case Study 1893, captured both voices with remarkable clarity. Frequency analysis using tuning forks revealed that the two voices operated on entirely different harmonic ranges without acoustic interference. The younger voice registered at 220 Hz, consistent with Clara's age and gender, while the older voice measured 180 hertz. Professor Hartley's notebook entry dated October 24 stated, "Acoustic impossibility observed and documented through mechanical recording apparatus." Meanwhile, museum curator Dr. Adelaide Morrison from the Philadelphia Natural History Society arrived to photograph the asylum's architecture for comparative acoustic analysis. Her catalog cards, filed under institutional acoustic anomalies, documented the East Wing's limestone composition and structural dimensions. Morrison's measurements revealed that Bed 17 occupied a precise acoustic focal point where sound waves converged from multiple corridor angles. Her architectural drawings showed that the room's proportions created what she termed natural amplification chambers within the limestone walls. A sealed letter from the asylum's board chairman, dated October 25th, authorized unlimited resources for scientific investigation of the phenomena. The letter referenced potential implications for medical understanding of consciousness and post-mortem neural activity. Dr. Hartwell's research notes, retrieved from the asylum's archives, provided crucial historical context for the current manifestations. His documented cases from 1847 to 1889 showed identical patterns. Patients speaking in voices of deceased individuals who had occupied the same beds. Laboratory analysis of the East Wing's limestone revealed unusual mineral compositions, including trace amounts of quartz crystal formations. Professor Hartley hypothesized that quartz deposits might function as natural phonographic storage media under specific conditions. His experimental measurements showed that the limestone walls exhibited resonance frequencies matching human vocal ranges. Temperature fluctuations in the East Wing, recorded hourly by Dr. Ashford, coincided precisely with vocal manifestation events. Room temperature dropped exactly 3 degrees Fahrenheit each time Clara spoke in Margaret Sinclair's voice. Dr. Morrison's laryngoscopy equipment detected no physical changes in Clara's vocal apparatus during dual voice episodes. However, electromagnetic measurements using primitive galvanometric instruments showed unusual energy patterns around Clara's throat area during manifestations. The asylum's head groundskeeper, Thomas Fletcher, reported similar temperature anomalies in the basement directly beneath Bed 17. Fletcher's maintenance log showed that the basement storage room experienced unexplained cold spots corresponding to vocal manifestation times upstairs. A telegraph message from Dr. Samuel White at Danvers State Hospital in Massachusetts described identical phenomena occurring in their East Wing. White's telegram reported, 3 patients speaking in voices of deceased inmates. Limestone construction. Same architectural period. Requesting consultation. Hospital records from Blackwell's Island in New York contain sealed reports of posthumous vocal inheritance dating to the 1870s. Each documented case occurred in institutions constructed with Pennsylvania limestone between 1840 and 1860. Dr. Ashford's correspondence with these facilities revealed a network of similar manifestations across multiple states. The pattern suggested that specific architectural and geological conditions created environments conducive to vocal retention and projection. On October 28th, patient Elizabeth Hayes in Bed 19 began speaking in the voice of Dorothy Mills, who had died there in 1891. Dorothy's final words, "The shadows grow longer each day," emerged from Elizabeth's lips with perfect intonation and accent. Dr. Ashford's journal entry that evening recorded his growing concern. The phenomena appears to be spreading systematically through the East Wing. By October 30th, 5 patients exhibited dual vocal manifestations, each channeling the final words of previously deceased occupants. Professor Hartley's final report to the Medical Society concluded, "Scientific instruments confirm the reality of posthumous vocal transmission through unknown mechanisms." His recommendation stated, "Immediate isolation of affected patients and comprehensive study of architectural acoustic properties." The asylum's board of directors scheduled an emergency meeting for November 1st to address the escalating situation. Their sealed minutes, discovered decades later, revealed deep concern about potential supernatural implications and public safety. Dr. Ashford's photographic documentation expanded to include time-lapse sequences showing temperature variations during vocal manifestations. The evidence accumulated beyond any reasonable doubt that the asylum itself had become a repository for the voices of the dead. Three competing theories emerged from the mounting evidence at St. Bartholomew's Asylum by early November 1893. Dr. Edmund Hartley proposed the acoustic resonance theory, suggesting that limestone walls functioned as natural sound storage devices. His supporting evidence included measurable frequency patterns that matched human vocal ranges and quartz crystal formations within the stone. However, this theory failed to explain why only final words were retained or how specific voices selected specific living patients. Professor Adelaide Morrison advanced the architectural memory hypothesis, claiming that building geometry created conditions for voice imprinting. She documented precise acoustic focal points where sound waves converged, potentially creating permanent impressions in limestone surfaces. Morrison's calculations showed that emotional stress during death might generate sufficient vocal energy for mineral absorption. Yet her theory could not account for the selective nature of voice manifestation or the perfect preservation of individual speech characteristics. The third explanation came from Reverend Thomas McKenna, who proposed spiritual residue manifestation as a theological framework. McKenna's supporting evidence included the exclusive focus on final words, which held particular significance in Christian doctrine. He noted that each manifesting voice sought to complete unfinished earthly communications, suggesting conscious posthumous intent. However, McKenna's theory contradicted established theological teachings about the soul's immediate departure from earthly concerns. Dr. Cornelius Ashford developed a hybrid neurological imprinting theory, combining elements from all three approaches. His model suggested that intense emotional states during death created electromagnetic imprints within limestone's crystalline structure. Ashford theorized that living patients with similar neurological patterns could access these imprints under specific conditions. Supporting evidence included the consistent temperature drops and electromagnetic readings during vocal manifestations. Yet Ashford's theory failed to explain why manifestations occurred only in bed 17 initially, or how voices selected appropriate hosts. A fourth theory emerged when Dr. Samuel White arrived from Danvers State Hospital with documentation of identical phenomena. White proposed institutional contagion, suggesting that vocal manifestations could spread between patients through unknown mechanisms. Each theory explained some aspects of the phenomena, while failing to account for the complete pattern of posthumous vocal inheritance. November 15, 1893, marked the night when St. Bartholomew's East Wing experienced its most harrowing manifestation of posthumous voices. At 11:47 p.m., night nurse Helen Morrison began her routine bed check, carrying a kerosene lamp through the dimly lit corridor. The temperature had dropped to 38 degrees Fahrenheit, unusually cold for the heated asylum interior. As Morrison approached bed 17, she noticed that Clara Whitmore was sitting upright, staring directly at the wall. Clara's lips moved silently at first, then began speaking in a voice Morrison had never heard before. The voice belonged to Dr. William Hartwell, Clara's predecessor, who had died in his office 4 years earlier. Hartwell's documented final words, "The voices never truly leave," emerged from Clara's throat with his distinctive English accent. At precisely 3:17 a.m., every patient in the East Wing began speaking simultaneously in voices of the deceased. Morrison's lamp flickered as the temperature plummeted another 5 degrees, and she could see her breath in the suddenly frigid air. The limestone walls began to vibrate with a low, almost inaudible hum that seemed to emanate from within the stone itself. Clara stood and walked to the center of the room, her movements unnaturally precise and deliberate. Other patients rose from their beds in synchronized motion, forming a circle around Clara as if responding to unheard commands. The smell of carbolic acid filled the air, though none had been used in the East Wing for weeks. Morrison felt the floorboards vibrate beneath her feet as 23 voices spoke 23 different final statements in perfect unison. Dr. Ashford, awakened by Morrison's screams, arrived to find all patients standing motionless, their eyes reflecting the lamplight like mirrors. Each patient continued speaking in their assigned posthumous voice, creating a cacophony of overlapping final words and dying wishes. The phonograph cylinder recorder, left running by Professor Hartley, captured every word with mechanical precision. At 3:33 a.m., the exact time of Margaret Sinclair's death months earlier, every voice fell silent simultaneously. The patients collapsed back onto their beds, as if released from invisible strings, with no memory of the preceding events. In the absolute silence that followed, Morrison later swore she could still hear the whispers echoing from within the limestone walls. The East Wing of St. Bartholomew's Asylum was permanently sealed on February 14, 1894, following the Board of Directors' emergency session. Official records cited structural instability and ventilation concerns, but internal documents revealed the true reason for closure. Dr. Ashford's final report, filed with the Pennsylvania State Board of Health, documented 47 cases of posthumous vocal manifestation. The asylum relocated all East Wing patients to the newer West Wing, constructed in 1885 with brick and mortar instead of limestone. No further vocal anomalies occurred after the patients were moved to different architectural materials and room configurations. Clara Whitmore was transferred to her family's care in March 1894, showing no residual effects from her months of dual voice manifestation. Her discharge summary noted, "Patient exhibits complete recovery with no memory of vocal episodes or supernatural experiences." Dr. Ashford resigned his position in April 1894 and moved to California, where he established a private practice far from institutional settings. His leather-bound journal disappeared from the asylum's records room sometime during the summer of 1894. The phonograph cylinder recordings made by Professor Hartley were stored in the Pennsylvania Medical Society's archives until 1923. When the cylinders were finally played for a committee review, they contained only static and unintelligible whispers. St. Bartholomew's Asylum operated until 1923, when declining patient populations and maintenance costs forced permanent closure. During demolition in 1924, workers reported hearing voices from within the sealed East Wing, though no living persons remained inside. Foreman Patrick O'Brien documented strange acoustic phenomena in his construction log. Voices emerge from the limestone as we remove each block. The limestone blocks from the East Wing were sold to a monument company in Philadelphia for use in cemetery construction. Several Philadelphia cemeteries reported complaints from visitors who heard whispers near headstones carved from St. Bartholomew's limestone. Mount Laurel Cemetery's superintendent noted in 1925, families request headstone replacement due to disturbing auditory experiences during visits. The asylum's patient records were transferred to Pennsylvania State Archives, where they remained sealed until 1967. Researcher Dr. Margaret Kellaway discovered the files while conducting a study on 19th-century psychiatric treatment methods for her doctoral dissertation. Her analysis revealed patterns connecting St. Bartholomew's to 12 other institutions where similar vocal manifestations have been documented and subsequently covered up. In 2019, the Millbrook Historical Society digitized Dr. Ashford's surviving photographs, including the famous image of Clara Whitmore from October 1893. Digital enhancement technology revealed details invisible to the naked eye. Two distinct vocal shadow patterns beneath Clara's chin remain clearly visible. Audio restoration specialist Dr. James Chun analyzed Professor Hartley's surviving phonograph cylinders using modern spectrum analysis software. Chin's report confirmed the presence of two simultaneous vocal frequencies on recordings from Bed 17, defying acoustic physics. The St. Bartholomew's site now houses a community college, but the East Wing Foundation remains visible beneath the campus parking lot. Maintenance workers report occasional temperature anomalies and unexplained sound from steam pipes, running through the old limestone foundation. Campus security logs document dozens of reports over the past decade of students hearing whispers in the library built above the former East Wing. Paranormal investigators have recorded electromagnetic anomalies consistent with Dr. Ashford's 1893 measurements in the same geographical coordinates. The Pennsylvania State Archives made all St. Bartholomew's records publicly available in 2020, revealing connections to similar cases across 13 states. Each documented institution was constructed between 1840 and 1865 using limestone quarry from the same geological formation in central Pennsylvania. Geological surveys confirm that this specific limestone contains higher concentrations of quartz crystal formations than surrounding stone deposits. Modern acoustic engineers have proposed that these crystals could theoretically store and replay sound vibrations under specific electromagnetic conditions. Dr. Kellaway's 2021 research paper, Institutional Acoustic Anomalies in 19th Century Medical Facilities, documented 847 cases of posthumous vocal phenomena. Her database includes detailed architectural plans, geological surveys, and witness testimonies spanning over a century of documented manifestations. The pattern suggests that certain combinations of limestone composition, architectural geometry, and emotional trauma create conditions for voice retention. Today, visitors to the Millbrook Historical Society can view Clara Whitmore's photograph and listen to restored phonograph cylinder excerpts. Many report an unsettling sensation while examining the evidence, the feeling that someone is speaking just beyond the range of human hearing. Could the voices of the dead truly imprint themselves upon the stone and mortar of our institutional buildings? Or does the human mind simply impose familiar patterns upon the random acoustic properties of aging architecture? If cases like this fascinate you, subscribe and turn on notifications for the next file. Disclaimer: this script is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, institutions, and incidents are invented or used fictitiously. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental, created solely for entertainment.